Humility has gotten something of a bad rap in our modern society. We often think of humility as self-abasement, groveling, protestations of unworthiness, but that is not what is intended by the word. To be truly humble means simply to look at the world and at oneself honestly, and not to claim credit for that with which one had nothing whatsoever to do. The humble person does not bow and scrape, nor does he make much of himself. The humble person does not brag, but neither does she snivel. To be humble is to recognize and to honor the interconnectedness of all being, to acknowledge that one's accomplishments and qualities are not due to oneself alone, but are in fact gifts, coincidences, instances of dumb luck in the cosmos. Someone might say, "I'm a hard-working person," or "I don't quit until the job's done," with some sense of pride or accomplishment. But is that person responsible for making themselves hardworking or persistent? When someone says to me, "I've worked hard for everything I have," my response is, well, count your blessings that you weren't born lazy. And count your blessings as well that you were born in the United States and not in a third world country. Imagine that you perform the same job in Nigeria or Nepal that you now perform here. How much less would you be paid for your work? Therefore, how much of your earnings really result from your hard work, and how much is the result of your luck at being born an American? The answer is, almost all of it comes from being an American, and very little of what you earn has to do with how hard or not you work. The hard-working American, then, has no reason for pride, but reason rather for humble thanks and gratitude that he or she was not born in a poorer country or with a less ambitious temperament. Our lack of humility often shows up in our interactions with other people. Let us say that we are at a convenience store. Although it generally remains below the level of conscious thought, we take an attitude of superiority as regards the employees working there. We subconsciously place ourselves above the C-store employee on some vague metaphysical scale, assuming that we must be somehow superior since we do not work in a C-store, and that they must be somehow inferior since they do. But this automatic and mostly subconscious ranking is totally invalid upon even the barest examination. In the first place, we might consider that employment at a convenience store, or as a barista or a waitress or a janitor or whatever, denotes nothing other than the individual's need for income and their willingness to work in order to obtain it. As one who has been employed in many socially disreputable occupations, I can speak from experience. Sometimes you need a job, and the only ones immediately available involve the cleaning of toilets, and so, regardless of educational achievement or personal ability or preference, you set to work on the cleaning of many, many toilets. In pretty much any college town, you can be assured that much of the menial manual labor is being done by people who know much, much more about existential philosophy, quantum physics, or music theory than you ever will. At any rate, our economy now contains far fewer people whose aspirations and abilities reach no higher than the lowest tier of manual labor than we have jobs of this sort that need filling. In most places I've worked, pretty much any of the low-level employees could easily have learned to perform the tasks of management. Nonetheless, only one of us, or a very few of us, got the firmly middle-class salary, while the rest were made to accept poverty wages. Second, as we have already stated, no one is responsible for their own character or ability, these being the free gifts or detriments of Goddess, fate, God, chance, or whatever you wish to call it. Only the crudest form of belief in karma lays the responsibility for these at the foot of the individual herself. We shall have more to say about this belief later. Whether one is hot-tempered or mild-mannered, quick-witted or a little on the dull side, ambitious and obsessive or easygoing and absent-minded, these are the cards which we are dealt to play, and they are the only cards which we can play with. It is not we who have selected these particular hands, and so what right do we have to brag if we find ourselves holding 5 aces? And by what cause do we feel ashamed if our cards do not happen to be winners? Humility means not being a superstitious poker player and thinking that drawing a straight flush indicates that one is a superior person. Like all things, humility and lack of humility are double-sided, having, as it were, both an internal and an external face. The internal face of a lack of humility elevates oneself above others, while its external face denigrates those others, pushing them down below oneself. Humility, on the other hand, seeing the interrelatedness of all things, does not put itself above others, nor force others down below itself. The internal and external faces of humility agree with one another. Neither is any other less worthy than myself, nor are they more worthy. Humility sees differences in kind between self and other, between one thing and another, but a lack of humility conflates these differences in kind with differences in value. And while all humble people agree that no one has just cause to place him or herself above another, those lacking in humility remain forever at odds as to which one of them is the best of all. I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the woo-woo aspect of spirituality and religion and neglect the philosophical, intellectual side, because the woo-woo strikes us as novel and strange, while the intellectual content just seems like a bunch of boring old academics lost in their world of words, totally divorced from the living, throbbing reality of life. This is understandable. Those times when you stand in awe of creation, when out of nowhere you somehow communicate with a tree or have an experience of apparent telepathy or precognition, this will of course stand out from the rest of your experiences as unique, singular happenings. If the experience comes as a result of some prolonged practice on your part, say of meditation or hatha yoga or ecstatic Christian prayer, you run the risk of thinking that this fact somehow connotes your superiority or promotion to a higher level of existence. The feeling of strangeness that goes along with the woo-woo phenomena can and has led many people astray. Mystics of all stripes are agreed, if you go chasing after the woo-woo in life and make it the center of your existence and spirituality, things will not go well for you. Not only might you just drive yourself bonkers, but you are likely to neglect altogether the truths of philosophy which are accessible to anyone at any time, and which the moments of transcendence and bizarritude that we are sometimes blessed with do absolutely nothing to alter.